After months of being ignored, I took a week off, no one noticed. When I came back, my name was off the team page, and my project had been renamed under someone else. I walked into the boardroom with a folder of patents they'd never signed over properly, and the general counsel just said, I started at the company when it was just an idea written on a whiteboard in a WeWork. There was no office, no product, no funding, just two co-founders with a deck and a dream. They needed someone to build. That was me. I was 27, burnt out from agency work, and desperate to finally make something that was mine. So, when I met them and they told me I could be founding engineer, I said yes. No fancy salary, no structure, just equity promises and a shared vision. I took the risk. I said goodbye to stability, health insurance, everything. For the first year, I did everything. Set up the servers, wrote every line of backend code, designed the early database schema, built out the internal tools, even helped name the damn product. I was the one up at 3 a.m. fixing bugs during beta. I was the one running demo videos when no one else could get the app to work smoothly. We didn't even have an HR department until the second year. No real contracts either. Just an offer letter that said details to follow and emails about equity that never got formalized. I pushed a few times to get things written down, especially around IP. They always told me, after the next round, let's not get distracted. I should have pushed harder. I knew it even then. The cracks started showing once we hit Series A. We moved into a real office, hired a bunch of new people, and brought in this guy named Travis. His title was VP of Product. Supposedly, he was some big deal from another startup, but right away, it was obvious. He saw himself as above the rest of us. He came in and acted like the product I built was broken, like it was something he had to rescue. He questioned my design decisions in meetings, took credit for my work during investor calls, and slowly started chipping away at my role. At first, I thought maybe I was being paranoid. But then he started pulling in junior engineers to work on his version of the app, the one I had already built. Suddenly, I wasn't being invited to certain meetings. The roadmap planning didn't include me anymore. Every time I spoke, I got brushed aside or interrupted. I became background noise in a company I helped build from scratch. I was still working 10 to 12 hours a day, fixing bugs, deploying updates, writing feature code. But I started noticing something strange. My name was getting left off release notes. Design documents I'd created were showing up in slide decks with no mention of me. Travis was now the one giving demos. And people started referring to the product by a different name, his name for it. Then came the 360 review. I was told I had collaboration issues, that I wasn't a team player. No one mentioned that I'd been isolated, that Travis had undercut me, or that I'd basically been shut out. When I brought it up with my manager, who'd joined after Series A and barely knew what I'd done, he said, that's just part of scaling. Not everyone adapts. I felt sick, but I kept showing up until I couldn't anymore. One night, I was lying on the floor of my apartment, heart racing, unable to breathe. I ended up in the ER. They said it was a panic attack. That was the moment I realized how far I'd pushed myself, trying to prove I still mattered to these people. So I told HR I needed a break. Just 1 week. I wrote a handover doc, set up coverage, sent an email saying I'd be offline. No one replied. Not even an automatic out-of-office acknowledgement. Just silence. At first, I figured everyone was busy. But when I came back, the silence got louder. My calendar was empty. No welcome back message. My badge still worked, but when I walked into the office, people looked at me like I was a ghost. I sat down at my desk and opened the company site. My name was gone from the team page, not even in the alumni section. Then I checked the product page. The name of the platform had been changed. And right there under leadership, it said Product Strategy and Development. Travis' last name. My heart dropped. 3 years. Just gone. Erased. I checked the repo. My code was still there, buried in branches and squash commits. But someone had edited documentation headers to remove my name. The About page I had written had been replaced, the design docs rewritten. I asked to speak with my manager. He looked uncomfortable, gave me some line about direction shifts and streamlining roles. I asked why I wasn't consulted. He just said, "It was decided during your leave." I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I thanked him and walked out, because while they were erasing me, they forgot one thing: they never got me to sign over my IP rights. Not legally, not fully. They were so focused on pushing me out, they didn't realize the technical foundation, architecture, and provisional patents for the core product were still under my name. I filed them myself when I saw the way things were heading. I paid for it out of my own savings. I had timestamps, file trails, source control backups, everything. And they forgot. 1 week later, I booked a meeting on the Boardroom calendar. I still had access to the assistant's scheduling system. She was one of the few people who hadn't treated me like I was invisible. I walked into the boardroom wearing the same hoodie I wore the first day I started. No laptop, just a thick folder full of papers, patent filings, Git logs, diagrams with metadata, signed email chains showing I had created the entire backend before anyone else was even hired. They were already seated when I arrived. The general counsel looked up, surprised. "We were under the impression you'd moved on." I slid the folder across the table and sat down. "I never signed anything," I said, "and I still hold the IP." The CEO started talking, saying something about team ownership and collective effort, but I didn't look at him. The general counsel opened the folder. Her eyes scanned the first few pages. Then she looked up again. "We may need to revisit a few things." I nodded, and I waited. The boardroom stayed quiet for a long time after that. No one expected me to show up. I could see it on their faces. I could see it especially on Travis. He kept shifting in his chair like he wanted to say something, but he didn't know what. The CTO, who I used to be close with before he started siding with Travis, stared at the table and said nothing. I didn't have to raise my voice. I didn't threaten anyone. I just sat there while they flipped through page after page of documents they never expected me to keep. Dates, screenshots, signed emails, Git history, diagrams, provisional patent filings. All of it tied back to me. They'd never formalized the IP handoff. They thought they had time. They assumed I'd always be there. And then, when I burned out, when I finally stepped away for 1 week, they saw an opening and shoved me out completely. But in their rush, they skipped the part where they actually took what I made. Now, I was holding it all. After the meeting, I got a short email from legal asking to set up a discussion. I agreed, but only if everything was in writing. No calls, no informal chats. I wasn't playing that game anymore. What followed was 2 weeks of back and forth. At first, they tried to minimize it. They offered me a goodwill gesture and asked me to sign a retroactive IP transfer agreement with a small payout, way less than a year's salary. I didn't respond. Then the tone changed. The next email had more legal jargon, more pressure. They warned me that contesting ownership could lead to drawn-out litigation, that any reputational harm might hurt both parties, that I risked damaging future employability. I forwarded the email to a lawyer friend. She read it and just said they're scared. That's when I realized how deep I'd gotten under their skin. They were bluffing, because if I went public, if I showed investors that the product they built was on shaky legal ground, the company could lose everything. Their upcoming series be depended on clean IP. And it wasn't clean, not even close. I held the keys. Then I got a message I didn't expect. Travis reached out directly. He sent me a short email saying we should grab coffee and talk it out like professionals. I didn't reply. He messaged me again the next day, saying we were on the same side and that he respected what I'd built. That part made me laugh out loud. Then he called me. I didn't answer, but I let it go to voicemail. He sounded nervous. That same week, someone from the investor team reached out, not the founders, not legal, but a partner from the VC firm. She said she wanted to understand the situation better. I agreed to a meeting. I brought the same folder. When she saw it, she didn't argue. She didn't try to gaslight me. She just listened, took notes, asked real questions. She already knew the risk. I could see it in her face. A few days later, I got another email, this one from the CEO, short and cold. It said they were exploring solutions that would be fair to all parties and that I would be hearing from their general counsel again with an updated proposal. I waited. In the meantime, I started talking. Quietly, carefully, I reached out to a few early team members who had left, people who'd been screwed over too, in different ways. I learned a lot about how Travis had fast-tracked his equity vesting, how the CEO had backdated some contracts, how someone from legal had resigned quietly months ago. There were cracks everywhere. Then something happened that changed the tone completely. I got an anonymous message in my inbox. No name, just a Proton mail address. Attached were screenshots, Slack messages between Travis and the CEO, talking about cutting me loose, scrubbing the repo, and locking the IP down before he realizes. There were even jokes about how no one reads contracts anyway. I don't know who sent it. I still don't. But once I had it, I knew I wasn't just holding leverage. I was holding evidence. I didn't threaten. I didn't post. I just sent it to their legal team with a single line. I think we're past the point of goodwill gestures. That's when the panic really set in. Emails started coming faster. They asked to meet again, said they wanted to work together on a resolution. I agreed, but under my conditions: no NDA, full back pay for my first missing paycheck to now, formal public credit for the product, and a clean buyout of all IP at fair value based on the current platform. No silence, no hidden terms, and no more pretending I didn't exist. They stalled, but I wasn't in a hurry anymore, because now they were the ones losing sleep. Not me. Just when I thought I had control, something shifted. 2 weeks after I sent that last message, everything went quiet again. No emails, no calls, nothing. I thought maybe they were regrouping, but something about it felt off. Then I checked LinkedIn. The company had announced a new version of the product, a complete platform rebuild. They said it was built from the ground up by the new leadership team. They tagged Travis and 2 new hires I didn't recognize. They didn't mention me at all. Of course. I looked closer. The screenshots they posted were my design. Same layout, same structure, just different colors and fonts. They hadn't rebuilt anything. They'd just reskinned it. I felt my chest tighten. They were trying to bury me again, harder this time. If they could convince investors that the new product had nothing to do with me, they might get away with scrapping the buyout and claiming I had no ownership. It was a lie, a desperate one. But if I didn't act fast, it might work. I called my lawyer friend again. She walked me through the options. One of them was filing a formal IP infringement notice to the investors and the hosting platforms. I didn't want to go nuclear yet, but I also couldn't let them keep rewriting history. Then came the second hit. I got a letter from a firm I didn't recognize. It was a cease and desist. They accused me of unauthorized disclosure of internal materials and threatening reputational harm to a private company. They said I was interfering with business operations and that further contact with investors or team members would result in legal action. It wasn't just intimidation, it was a setup. If I responded wrong, they could sue me into silence. I didn't reply. I forwarded it to my lawyer and she handled it. That's when I started looking into the company's cap table. It took some digging, but I had enough old pitch decks and fundraising docs to piece most of it together. And that's how I found a real twist. The patents weren't just important. They were listed in the Series A documents as core IP assets. That meant the investors had already bet money on something the company didn't own because the founders never got me to sign the transfer. And now I had proof that they knew. The joke was if I wanted to, I could tank their Series B. Not just stall it, end it. That's not what I wanted at first. But after the fake rebuild, post, the cease and desist, and 3 years of erasure, I started to feel something shift in me. This wasn't just business. They weren't just trying to steal code. They were trying to erase my name like I'd never existed, like none of it ever happened. So I made a plan. But before I could act, another twist came, this time from the inside. A junior engineer messaged me. I hadn't spoken to him in months. He said he needed to talk. We met in a park, no phones. He looked tired, like he hadn't been sleeping either. He told me everything. Travis had been rewriting commit histories, manually editing Git logs to make it look like his team had built the product from scratch. He showed me screenshots. I almost didn't believe it, but it was real. Even worse, they had started deleting old Slack channels, ones where I'd led conversations, made decisions, written specs. Erased, just gone. He said he couldn't take it anymore, that the culture had gotten toxic, that people were quitting quietly or being paid off to keep quiet. But he didn't want money. He wanted the truth out. I asked him why he came to me. He said, because you built it, and they're pretending you didn't. I left that meeting with more than I expected. He gave me copies of the altered Git history. Names, timestamps, discrepancies. Enough to prove tampering. Enough to show intent. Now, I wasn't just sitting on patents. I was sitting on evidence of fraud. And the next move was mine. After that park meeting, I didn't sleep much. I had everything. The original code, the unassigned patents, the Slack messages, the emails, the version control logs. Now, I had proof they'd tried to rewrite history. Literally. Git logs don't lie. Not without someone noticing. But the pressure was high. They had money, lawyers, connections. I had truth. That doesn't always win. I went quiet for 2 weeks. Didn't contact them. Didn't reply to the lawyers. Let them believe I had backed off. During that time, I hired a real IP attorney. Not a friend, not a favor, someone serious. We laid it all out. We built a case. Then I did something I had tried to avoid from the beginning. I wrote a formal letter to the VC firm, the one leading the Series B. My lawyer sent it directly to the general partner with a full dossier. The dates, the code history, the patent filings, screenshots of Travis rewriting logs, and a notarized declaration that the company's core tech was built solely by me and never signed over. We gave them 7 days to respond. 3 days later, my attorney's office phone lit up. The VC firm had frozen all activity with the company. The deal was off. That same afternoon, I got another message, this time from the CEO himself. He didn't even try to sound strong anymore. Said he hoped we could still find a mutual solution. Asked if we could meet face-to-face. I didn't reply. Instead, I filed a cease and desist of my own. Full legal filing. Public. I made sure it was searchable. That's when the cracks turned into breaks. The story started spreading. Quietly at first, in investor Slack groups. In ex-employee networks. Then someone leaked it. A short blog post showed up. When founders erase founders, a cautionary IP tale. It didn't name names, but it didn't have to. I watched in real time as people started connecting dots. I kept my name off everything, but I kept feeding the fire. Carefully, legally, truthfully. Then one of the original co-founders, someone who had ghosted me a year earlier, reached out. He apologized, genuinely, said he was ashamed, said he knew what they'd done but felt too scared to step in. He sent me a folder of old internal memos. One had my name listed under non-transferred assets. It was dated 2 years ago. They knew. They had always known. That memo became the final nail. Within a month, the company's legal team offered a full buyout. 7 figures. Public recognition on the IP filing. Formal credit on the product. Written apology. No NDA. I took it. Not just for the money. For the proof. For the record. For the silence finally breaking. And then the collapse began. Travis was removed to pursue other opportunities. The CEO stepped down 3 weeks later. The investors pulled out completely. The new version of the platform went dark. Their funding dried up. A few of the early employees started posting vague LinkedIn updates about toxic culture and lessons learned. One of them DM'd me. He just said, "You were right." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I had my name back. I had my work back. And more than anything, I had peace. I don't regret the years I gave that company. But I regret trusting people who smiled while sharpening knives. Next time I won't. I still write code. I still build. But now, my name is the first thing on the page, and it's staying there.